Welcome, everyone. My name is Will Smith, and we're here with a team who recently just got back from the International Builder Show. And what we'd like to share with you today are some key takeaways. So let's get right to it. We're going to kick it off with the president and CEO of Manobite, Kevin Dean.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be with you guys today. I was super excited about the IBS show in Orlando, Florida, 2 weeks ago. It was absolutely very hot. It was a high attendance. There were a lot of people there, a ton of traffic on the floor. The place was amazing. We saw some amazing booths. A lot of people just really came and showed out. And, it was higher than what I expected. I think a lot of people were excited to be back face to face and have a lot of these in-person interactions. That was kind of a lot of the sentiment that we were hearing as we were talking to people, as people were stopping by our booth and as we were visiting others. I think that one of the things that I just noticed is that while people were great to be in person, it was super exciting. I heard a lot of sentiments around how, yeah, it's great to be back in person, but I believe that a lot of people were feeling that digital selling, digital interactions, the things that we've learned over the past 2 years from being in COVID are still going to stay, and they're not going away. And a lot of companies are thinking about how do they continue to leverage digital in their entire selling process. And I think that this is really having a major impact on companies who are selling in the building materials ecosystem. It's pretty exciting, and I thought the show was absolutely great.
Jillian, our Vice President of Solutions over at Manobite, can you give us some introductory thoughts, whether that's through the innovation, whether it's attendance, some thoughts on the International Builders Show?
Yeah, I actually agree with Kevin on a lot of it. What I saw was very high attendance, and in that attendance, you saw the decision makers. So that was a big key difference. So in the past, there would be some decision makers sprinkled in, but now you're seeing a lot less of support staff and a lot more of those C-level folks and things like that, the folks that you need to be connecting with at shows like this. And so the buzz was still strong with the sentiment of we do need to supplement in other ways, because we will see trade shows shrink, right? The amount of them, you're probably going to start to see that consolidation. They still exist, but you may see 3 shows in one going forward versus 3 separate shows. So you have to supplement that face time with these folks by embracing that digital selling element and increasing your tech stack in the right way and building it out correctly through PRMs and CRMs, things of that nature. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. I know we heard a lot more people talking about it and really embracing it and understanding the need for it, which we hadn't seen in previous shows. So I think that's something we'll continue to see as we go forward here, especially in 2022.
Thanks, Jillian. Let's throw it over to Danielle now. And Danielle, you're the director of marketing at Manobite. And so we would probably expect to see you usually just sitting around the booth, right, waiting for people. But that's not what happened. You and Jillian were very intentional about going out to other people and having those conversations. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about some of those conversations and the things that you learned from those very conversations.
Yeah, Jillian and I and Kevin got out there on the floor and we had a lot of really good conversations, really trying to uncover what is top of mind for people right now. And there were a couple key themes, and a lot of it did relate to how to effectively communicate to every single customer down the line. That's still a huge pain point for a lot of manufacturers, and distributors are feeling it as well. Their role as a distributor has been changing for decades. It continues to change every year. Distributors will always exist, but the way that they contribute to the channel is going to change. And so everyone needs to be aware of that. The manufacturer needs to be aware of it. The distributor needs to be aware of it. And all of the end customers need to be aware of it too. Something really interesting that I picked up on was the changing tone of relationships between builders and distributors. There's a lot less loyalty than there used to be because they're being so strapped for margins. They have a lot to do in very little time, and they're in a season of high demand right now. They know it won't always be that way. They know that wherever the market goes up, it's going to go back down eventually. So they're trying to be really cognizant of who they're partnering with, who they're working with. And they're being a lot pickier and choosier about that too. And they're really price sensitive right now. That was another key theme that I kept hearing over and over again. Kevin, you also kept hearing that builders are adopting a lot more technology. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that was another big thing that we were hearing as we were talking to people. And it's interesting that everybody is looking to adopt technology faster than they ever have. And that was pretty exciting. We heard a lot of people talking about the need for implementing a new CRM, a need for implementing a new marketing automation tools. We spoke to several companies who were looking to implement new dealer portals, folks who are really thinking about how do they increase their relationship with distributors and builders, and what technology do they need to use in order to help in those processes. We heard a lot of people talking about sales enablement tools. I think everybody's really looking at digital as a way to help them to sell better, and really to enhance a lot of the relationships that people have. And it was pretty exciting as we looked to see what people are doing and where their focus is. What did you see out there, Jillian?
Similar to that, but in a different vein, I'm going to step off of the technology side because I think you covered it pretty well. Were some of the pain points, right, that these folks are experiencing, and not lost on anyone. It continues to be transparency and fulfillment, right? And making sure if we can get manufacturers to do and remember one thing, it is be honest with the folks that you're working with. And that's all that those folks are asking for at this point. And technology can supplement that, correct, by utilizing certain programs to address those issues. So it ties it back in, and we think, we start to see some productivity increase and things like that, but just know that continues to be, it isn't lost on anyone, a struggle for the market right now, but not being afraid to take that next step to connect with those folks that you're selling to by providing technology resources where they can check on their orders, they can check what are true ship times and things like that. And there are programs are that can do that for you, so you don't have to worry about your sales team or otherwise sitting there and manually doing those things. So it may seem a little bit heavy at the time, like an undertaking, but the long-term payoff, especially knowing this is not going away, is huge. How about you, Danielle?
Agreed. And to add on to that, integrations with partners was another really big thing that we saw, where different technology companies and platforms are launching really key functionality by bridging the gap between what used to be silos. And so developing those key relationships and strategically developing solutions for the end customer, whether that be a builder or an architect or a facilities manager, that end customer is looking to distributors and manufacturers to work together. And distributors are going to be, because they have a book of many manufacturers' products, they're going to be leveraging what they can to grow their businesses too. And so be cognizant of that as you're planning for the next 5 years. Make sure that you know really where everyone's thinking to go so that you don't get left behind. Will, did you see anything along those lines? Did you hear anything along those lines, or were you hearing something else?
I definitely agree with you there. A lot of the things that I saw was at the show itself. How can we make this as easy as possible to understand your product? It's impossible in such a large conference area to see every single or go to every single booth or to have a conversation with every vendor that's there or with every person that's there. So what I really like to see is that innovation, not only in the product, but also over the pandemic, you may have mastered this digital element of your business, but we may be doing some old school techniques when it comes to actual presentation at a conference like this. So being able to quickly understand and know what the product is, make it easy for me so that if I'm just passing by, maybe something will pique my interest that will get me to go into your booth and maybe have that conversation. That's really what I saw there. Some people did a great job at that. I posted on LinkedIn about that, who is really being successful in providing context and using influencer marketers to really showcase their products and to really draw people into what these new innovations that Kevin was talking about. So that's pretty much what I saw.
Let's talk about how technology is being integrated into the homes at the show. We saw a lot of that. As we were walking around, there were huge sections of smart home automation companies at the show, and every company there was thinking about how do we start integrating our product into the home from a smart technology perspective. What platforms are we using? What do we need to be thinking about? And what was interesting about that is there were so many of them. You started to hear a lot of conversations about change relationships. Again, like this is kind of a recurring theme of how to build these new relationships and new partnerships that they haven't had in the past. We heard people talking about building relationships with not just architects, but system integrators and technology platforms. People talking about making sure that their products integrate with Amazon and integrate with Google. And so it was pretty interesting to see how a lot of folks in the building material industry are now becoming tech companies. And that's pretty exciting. And because of this shift that we're seeing, a lot of people are starting to think much differently than they ever have before. And so I think that this is something that we'll continue to see escalate, especially as homeowners are looking for more and more technology to be integrated into their homes. It's just becoming commonplace. Pretty exciting things that we saw on the show floor at the IBS show.
When I was literally things I didn't think you could make smart or have been made smart, like your entire home. I think it's pretty impressive. I think it's pretty cool. And I think too, the vast increase, just like we've seen in a lot of things, have stemmed from the pandemic, right? People are spending more time at home. They want more out of their home, whether it's their indoor space or outdoor space, and they want it to be convenient and they want it to be fast and instant. And it's the nature of society, and it's just going to keep trending that way. And I think you're going to start to see a lot more, Kevin, like you were alluding to, partnerships where things actually start to work together more seamlessly. And as these new builds keep coming out, more and more of them are going to have more of those elements. And that technology ecosystem that everyone's operating off of really needs to be tight and efficient and cohesive.
So Jillian, one of the things that I noticed, you talk about people spending more time at home. A lot of the things that are these new innovations are because of that spending more time at home. Something that really struck me that I'm going to probably take a deeper look at for my own home was soundproofing. Because of the pandemic, because of I'm working from home now, I'm doing more on Zoom. I acquired a puppy, actually 2 dogs over this time. So I need to have a quiet space. I'm no longer going to the office, but I need to have that quiet space. So much of this innovation is a lot of technology, but also a rethinking of, you have this area, rethinking, in this example, rethinking walls. I never thought I would rethink my own wall until I was actually in the space on a regular basis, and I hear all kinds of different things that I had never heard before because I just wasn't spending that amount of time.
Jillian, you and I, we were walking the floor and we saw a lot of folks from the outdoor living spaces doing a lot of things on the exterior of the home. And because that's just becoming another extension of what people are looking for and how people are expanding that space and those spaces now. And there are a lot of exciting things that people are doing in the outdoor living areas at the show too. A lot of great things that was pretty exciting for me to look at as well.
You know, outdoor living and pools, things like that used to seem more of a luxury, right? That was second level. And it's not that it isn't now, but it's becoming more commonplace because people have found the comforts in their home. And they're saying, what can I do to improve it so that they have it long term, or heaven forbid if we end up in a situation like this again, something like that. But there's so much positivity around the improvement of outdoor living and how to make it feasible for folks, and what elements do you bring in, what do you not, and how does technology complement that?
Especially with the wintertime and the weather that we're having in Michigan or in the Pittsburgh area, we're dreaming of those outdoor spaces now in February, so that when spring does roll around, hopefully it will sooner rather than later, but when spring does roll around, we're excited to have these things, to have that space, to have that extra room, so to speak, and be able to enjoy it in ways that we haven't enjoyed it before.
Well, I'm curious to hear from you guys on your thoughts about new entrants into the market, and the response of larger companies that are more established, and what some of the risks and dangers are that might be kind of floating in the periphery that manufacturers really need to be aware of right now.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of new companies entering the market. And the companies that are entering into the market, they're coming in with a tech first mentality. They're coming into the marketplace trying to solve for the challenges that they see in distribution and solving for the challenges that they see in communication. And they're coming in with products that are already smart. And so those were the big things. And so I think as these new companies start to enter the market, there are pros and cons. One, they're coming in with a fresh eyes and they can be very disruptive to the industry. I think some of them, they're coming in with a lack of background in the industry. And I think where they're struggling is going to be with understanding regulations and things of that nature. But I think that those are things that they'll learn quickly. Even I think like when Tesla entered into the market from a roofing standpoint, they've had some challenges on the side of understanding regulations and what works in different areas. But I think those are things that they'll quickly figure out and get those things resolved. But I think there is a lot of room for disruption in the space with new companies entering into the market. And I think the companies who have been around for a long time, they're now scrambling to change the way that they're doing business because they can see that things are changing quickly.
I heard the same sentiments several times where these smaller companies are saying, when I ask them, like, how do you go to market? They're saying, we go direct to consumer. And they're bypassing those traditional distribution models because they have the tools they need to make direct to consumer profitable, whereas it didn't used to be that way. And they're a lot more agile. They have a lot less bulk to try to turn. So they're turning a small little skiff instead of trying to turn the Titanic. And that's a huge benefit to what's happening as change just accelerates and they have to adapt and constantly keep up with consumer demand and the changing perceptions of different brands and all of those other factors as well.
Direct to consumer and direct to builder, right? So I'm going straight to the builder and really building those relationships directly with the builder and the system integrators as well.
I think the folks too that you see that are still going through those traditional channels, even though they might be new to the industry, they are actually, this is a time for them, right? Because this is the first time in some time that folks who are speccing projects and things like that are more open and looking at different avenues to find new manufacturers or resources for fulfillment. So there's actually time for those people to enter the market where it might have been a little harder. It's not easy, but there's definitely more opportunity knowing that eyes are looking at a vast array of different building product brands and not just always the preferred brand anymore. So like you were saying, it's a little harder to maintain that preferred brand status right now without providing maybe some more incentives for the folks that you are servicing. But then as that new company coming in, you have that opportunity to compete and maybe beat out those preferred brands because you finally have the opportunity to have a voice in that channel or in the industry.
I think it goes back to what Danielle was saying earlier about brand loyalty, how it's not really there anymore. These companies recognize it, they're going to market, and they're leveraging that. saying they might not have it, but we have it, and we have the product you're looking for, and it's even better because it connects here. It works with what you already have. And so would you say that's true, Danielle?
I would. And even going beyond the physical product, it's the convenience factor, alluding back to the communication, the availability, and knowing how much hassle is this going to be for me to order, to get on the job site, to get installed without any issues, because I have 27 other fires to deal with today already. I don't need one more from you. And so even thinking through what manufacturers are providing from a customer service perspective is really important, making sure that anyone who is available to answer questions for the end customer, whether that be a builder or a DIYer or anyone involved in installing the product, knows what they're talking about. It can't be an uninformed, indirect sales rep. They need to know what the value of your product is and how to make it work with the specific project that they're installing it for. And so we also talked to several companies that maybe have hidden products. So things that go behind the wall, basically, that aren't really seen. They're not architectural products. They're not aesthetically pleasing to the eye, but they serve a very important function. And there was a lot of pain in hearing that the manufacturer would get calls from homeowners when a company installed the component improperly, even to the point of it being installed upside down so that it wasn't working. And the manufacturer gets the call and they can't do anything about it because it was the installer situation. When I say they can't do anything about it, that's a little bit of a misnomer. And I think the takeaway is you can do something about it. You can do more to educate the people who are installing your product and delivering that to the final build so that you're not getting a call or a social media message or a website contact submission from a frustrated homeowner because something's not working in the house that they just bought.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to see everything that's happening in the marketplace kind of all coming together. And I think it's around some of the themes that Jillian spoke about earlier. Pulling things together, making connections, making things transparent, making sure everybody has the right tools that they need when they need it, that they have access to the right information. All those things are starting to happen, building up relationships. And it's really exciting to see how the industry is truly changing for the better. And I'm excited to see what comes next.
Just a quick question for the rest of the group. Would you say that these insights, you wouldn't have been able to glean this unless you went to unless you went to a conference like this? And second part of the question, are you thinking about going to more, and should our audience be going to more conferences like this? We'll start with you, Kevin.
I definitely think that there were a lot of insights that we gained from going to the conference. And I think that, you'll continue to see us very actively at places where everyone meets. We'll be there talking and having those conversations too.
There's certainly things that we knew walking in, right? Supply chain, things like it. So, certain elements, but the conversations that you have with the contractors and the builders and things like that aren't necessarily things you can glean wholeheartedly without that personal connection, because there is still a gap that has to be bridged between virtual connection and in person, and you can't take that away. So those trade shows are a beautiful way to do that. Like I said, I think we'll still continue to see trade shows. They're not going to go away. They're a great tool for folks, and I think we'll continue to see that. Definitely urge people to go to the purposeful ones, right? Go to the ones that are going to best serve you and your team in the long run and the folks that you're trying to reach. I think IBS is great. We'll obviously be there in 2023. So I look forward to seeing everybody in Vegas.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also going to trade shows and industry events in person adds so much more value because you can connect other people as well and establish those other relationships that can circle back around and benefit you later. And that's really important too. That's how this industry has functioned for a long time. And I don't think that aspect of this industry is going to change, even as technologies are adopted and go-to-market strategies change a little bit. That component's definitely not going to change.
So to sum it up, it is not either or, but rather I think the consensus for the group is it's both and. Make sure you have your digital house in place, but also make sure you get out there and, as they say, press the flesh and have those conversations, talk to people, shake hands, and really get to know the exact pain points that you can't understand just from looking at someone's website. If your annual goals involve increasing revenue from indirect sales channels, including distributors, DIYers, builders, contractors, dealers, fabricators, architects, engineers, and facility managers, Manobite can help.